Hey everybody, John Skiba here, and in this video I'm going to share with you some tips and strategies on how to deal with medical bills through Chapter 7 bankruptcy and through debt settlement. But if this is your first time here to my YouTube channel, go ahead and click subscribe. That way you get notified each and every week when I put out new content that'll help you deal with serious debt problems. Alright, let's talk about medical bills. Now, medical bills in the context of Chapter 7 bankruptcy, which is the type of bankruptcy that most people file when they go through this process, they are classified as what's referred to as a unsecured general non-priority creditor. And what that means basically is they go away. They're discharged through the bankruptcy process. Typically, there's no collateral or property attached to the medical bill. And so they go away completely. They're just like credit cards. They fall into this unsecured category where you can file the bankruptcy. It'll stop any collections that you may be experiencing due to the medical bills, and they go away completely at the end. They're discharged. You don't have to pay on them. A couple things to consider, though, if you're thinking about bankruptcy to eliminate medical bills. And I should say medical bills is usually in the top 1-2 categories of why people file for bankruptcy, is because they do have a lot of medical bills. The one thing to remember is that the Chapter 7 bankruptcy only discharges medical bills that you for services or debts that were incurred prior to the filing of your Chapter 7 case. So if you file Chapter 7 on June 1st, any medical services that you receive treatment for or any medical bills that you receive prior to June 1st, those would be included in your bankruptcy and they would be discharged, they would go away. However, if you file bankruptcy on June 1st and then you have a procedure on June 15th or June 2nd or June 3rd or any time in the future, those are not included in your bankruptcy and you're going to be responsible for those. So as far as what does that mean, or as far as what considerations should you be giving, if you are in a situation where you are receiving treatment and there's just no way that you're going to be able to pay it and you're considering bankruptcy, you may want to see what the future holds. If you anticipate you still need a lot of additional treatment, bankruptcy right now may not be a good idea. Because if you file for bankruptcy and then you incur a bunch of debt after your bankruptcy case is filed, you're going to be required to pay those debts. And not only that, but you can't file Chapter 7 bankruptcy again for 8 years. So you'd have to figure out a way to pay those. So the timing of your bankruptcy is fairly important. It's also important to take into consideration that if you owe money to a specific doctor, those debts will go away. So if your family doctor sees you, they're charging you, you owe them money, you file for bankruptcy, it'll wipe out that debt. However, your doctor does not have to continue to see you as a patient in the future. So if it's something where you have a relationship with a doctor that's important to you to keep going, it's important to know that by filing bankruptcy on that particular debt could give the doctor the right to terminate that relationship and not have you as a patient down the road. Often what I recommend with clients is that they reach out to the medical provider and explain what the situation is, that they're having to file this bankruptcy case. And sometimes there can be a voluntary payment arrangement worked out after the fact, or sometimes they will give you a discount, or sometimes they'll just work with you, period, even though they won't be paid for services that have already happened. So the important thing there is communication with the medical provider if it's a relationship that you want to keep. Now, there is a distinction between an individual doctor and a hospital. So if you owe hospital money, a debt for services, you had a hospital stay, you file bankruptcy, those debts also go away. However, a hospital cannot deny you entrance. If you show up to the ER, they can't say, hey, you filed bankruptcy on us, you're out of luck. They can't do that. So there's a distinction between those medical providers and hospitals that you may owe money to. Because of some of these other kind of side issues related to a Chapter 7 bankruptcy filing and medical bills, while it is a powerful tool to get rid of those debts, you may want to look at debt settlement options. And when it comes to settling debt, medical bills are generally a little bit easier to settle than credit cards or other types of debts. And there's a few things that impact that you need to know as you're trying to reach out to settle. First of all is that typically medical providers don't report you to the credit reporting agencies. However, if they send it to a collection agency, those collection agencies often do. However, the big three credit reporting agencies, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, they do not report medical collections until it's 180 days past the time when the account was due. So for that, and they do that because they know that a lot of times you don't even know how much you owe. I have twin daughters. They were in the ICU when they were born forever. And I swear, we received 10 different little invoices for years in the future. Sometimes it just takes a long time to get medical bills. So the credit reporting agencies aren't going to report that for 6 months. That gives you a window of opportunity to try to settle these debts. Not only that, but medical providers often will settle for much less than the typical creditor, so you can offer something lower to try to get the thing taken care of. And then the third reason why settlement's not a bad option is because if it is reporting on your credit report, once the medical debt is settled and paid, it's deleted. It goes away completely. And so that will give you a big bump in your credit score. So a couple things to think about if you're dealing with medical problems and medical bills that are associated with that. Bankruptcy is a powerful tool, but debt settlement has a few little different things about it that might make it a little easier for you to get that resolved rather than having to go the bankruptcy route. Appreciate you watching today.